tried to lose weight for about 10 years, and in that time, I really felt like a failure because I couldn't figure out why year after year I would write on my New Year's resolution that I was going to get to my goal weight, but then every single time January rolled around again, I was nowhere closer. And I did this cycle so long that I felt like a continual failure. And now today, 4 or 5 years later, where I've lost 40 pounds and maintain it, there's been a few things that I've learned, but really it's boiled down to a few mindset shifts and then cheat codes to make progress easier. And that's what I want to share with you today. And these are frameworks that I've used for my weight loss, but I've also used them to help me run a couple of half marathons, get my first pull-up, and now actually do my 10th pull-up the other day. I PB'd on my pull-ups, which is crazy when I used to not be able to do any at all. Build a business, start a podcast, and start a YouTube channel that you are watching here today. And the question I used to ask myself was, why do some people seem like they can go from success to success, that they can set a goal and then actually make that possible and achieve it? And then why do other people spend their entire lives failing or struggling to make any real progress, even though they might be actually smarter and have more resources than someone who is a little bit dumber and still achieving more than that other person? What is the big difference here? And I'm going to share those 6 cheat codes in just a second. But before I could figure out how to do that, I had to understand what the problem was. And here's the dilemma that we face. If we have big goals like losing 100 pounds or doing a pull-up or running a marathon, then there's a big gap between who we are today and who we need to become and what we need to learn and how we need to grow in order to achieve the goal. And if you have a pull-up goal like I used to, I want you to imagine yourself hanging from the bar and straining with all your might to try and lift yourself. And you can't even lift yourself more than a couple of inches. No matter how hard you try, it is physically impossible to do a pull-up, let alone a goal of, say, 10. It doesn't matter how much effort or willpower you have. You're simply not the person that you need to be in order to complete that goal. Losing 40 pounds was the same. Until I'd actually achieved that goal and then maintained it, I didn't know how to be the kind of person who could lose weight and keep it off. And so we almost face this impossible challenge where we know who we are today and we have all this evidence that we are lacking. We can't do the thing that we need to. We are not that person today, but also that we have to become that person. And no matter how much you visualize, no matter how much you hope and pray, unless something changes between today and future you, you will never achieve that goal. It's kind of demoralizing and a little bit overwhelming. Not only are you looking at all the things you lack today, you're also looking at all the evidence that you may have failed in the past. Maybe you've been trying to lose weight for 20 years. Maybe you've had this goal of doing a pull-up for 10 years. Maybe you've been saying every year, I want to run a half marathon, but you still haven't done your first 10K yet. So not only do we have the evidence that we're lacking, we also have all the other evidence that we're kind of failures in a lot of ways because we haven't done it yet. Now, there's hope to this and I want to share that, but I want you to understand kind of how dire the situation is unless we have a different alternative, because we're looking at the truth. We can't do it. And then we're trying to psych ourselves up essentially in order to bridge that gap with no evidence that we actually could become that person. Now, here's where it starts to get really good. I want you to visualize that this is a mountain that you need to climb and that you're thinking about the summit. That's the goal. That's the end. You can't apparate and you can't teleport. So you can't actually do something in the here and now to achieve the summit. But here's what you can do. You can take one step. And I know that sounds really blindingly obvious, but that is the only thing that is the difference between where you are today and where you need to be. It's a million tiny steps. And anyone who has achieved something that you haven't have just taken more steps and more of the right kind of steps over a longer period of time than you have. And the part that's so hopeful about this is that you don't need to be the kind of person who can do 10 pull-ups. You don't need to know all the things that you need to do in order to run a half marathon. You don't need to have all the fitness required. You don't need to have all of the knowledge and all of the behaviors and all of the habits to lose 100 pounds and then stay there. All you need to do to predictably achieve that goal is to become the kind of person that can continually make steps. And this is the story of the tortoise versus the hare. It's the moral of the story. The tortoise continues to take one step after the other, and he just doesn't stop making progress. Whereas the hare lies down and he sleeps for a while, and then he doesn't get to the prize because he stops taking steps. And as impossible as the goal may seem to you today, as long as you continue to take steps and as long as you continue to move forward, you will at some point hit that goal. No matter how discouraging or how overwhelming or how far away it feels, if you continue to take the right steps, then you will predictably achieve that. So you just need to become like the tortoise who keeps going rather than the hare that either stops and starts, or they stops and give up, or they stop and then they never try again at all. So the 6 cheat codes that we're going to talk about are how to become the kind of person who builds an identity where they consistently take the steps needed to succeed. And here's how to do just that. Number 1 is to make those steps easy and smaller. Because right now we have contradictory evidence that if you say you're going to go to the gym, but you actually end up on Netflix eating ice cream, that you are not someone who takes the steps that you say that you're going to. So essentially you don't have any trust in yourself to do difficult things. Your word doesn't mean anything if you go back on it all the time. So how do you get your word to start meaning something? How do you build that identity within yourself? That if you say you're going to do something, you actually follow through. You have to make that smaller in the beginning so that you can follow through and do it. So for myself, I have goals, but I also have minimum targets. So a goal might be that I want to work out 5 days a week. But I also have a minimum target where that workout could look like me just coming in and walking on the treadmill. Why? So that I can win by just going to the gym. Because if I want to be the kind of person who can do 10 pull-ups, I'm going to need to be the person that first steps in the doors of the gym. And what happens if you say, well, it's too hard and I don't have time for a full workout, therefore I'm not going to go at all? You're stacking evidence that you're not a step taker. Whereas if you really don't want to go, but you go anyway, you walk through the door, you pick up one weight and then you go home, you've just built evidence that you are a step taker. You're moving in the direction of who you need to be. And you can use this for eating vegetables, adding 1 piece of broccoli to your meals. You can do this by microwaving a potato, but not actually even eating it, eating a donut after you microwave a potato. Whatever would be the first tiny step to the action that you actually want to complete, have that as your minimum target so that you can start to become a step taker. Number 2 is to habit stack. Stand up right now and try to take a step forward without actually any forward momentum. You'll put your foot out, but you won't actually add any weight to your foot or actually step until you have some kind of momentum. And the same is true for habits and our behavior. So in order to take a step, we can't just build that out of nowhere. We can't just say, hey, I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to start eating vegetables, or I'm going to prep. It's very hard to add that if we don't attach it to something that we already do, which is the momentum. So habit stacking allows you to do this. And here's an example. So I've been trying to hit a step goal, and I really struggle to get my steps in because I've got a lot of other things going on and I just put it last on my priority list. But I realized this, and so I thought, well, what can I do? What can I stack this habit to of walking that is already an established habit in my life? And that's going to the gym every day. So rather than having some kind of step goal that I wasn't hitting, now I just attach a 15-minute walking goal to the start of my workout on the treadmills when I get to the gym. Spoiler alert, I can actually hit that goal every single day of the week that I work out. My step goal is pretty easy to achieve now because I've stacked it to something that is already being done. It's an existing habit. Now, bonus points if you make it even easier and you make it more enjoyable, which is what I've done with adding in reading. So not only am I walking on the treadmill before my workout, which is stacking a habit, I'm also stacking a habit I actually enjoy, which is reading a novel, with my walking, so that now I'm actually looking forward to walking, whereas before I was dreading it. And remember, all we're trying to do is become the kind of people who can take steps, and if those steps feel easy and enjoyable, then we're more likely to do them. So here's some ways you could use this. You could be meal prepping while watching your favorite show. You could be making your overnight oats while listening to an audiobook. You can attach prepping your broccoli like I do to actually bringing it home from the shops, because it's already an existing behavior and now you're just making it ready for when you want to eat it. I'm someone who wants to read my Bible on a regular basis, so I stack that habit with getting up in the morning and going to bed at night, because those are already behaviors that are consistent in my life. I will go to bed at some point, so if I just read a couple of verses before I go to sleep, then I can consistently do that and I'm not going to forget or put it off because it's just stacked with an existing behavior. Number 3 is to add some pain and a bit of consequence to not taking the steps. If you make $1 million, are you wealthy? Most people would say yes, but what if that takes you a lifetime? That's not wealthy, that's poverty. That's less than minimum wage over 40 years. So speed and timing do matter when it comes to taking action. If you don't have deadlines to when you take your steps, then you're probably going to pause for too long, like the hair, or you're not actually going to be motivated to continue making them in order to achieve your goal in a timely manner. You don't want to spend the next 40 years of your life trying to lose 40 pounds, I'm going to guess. You want to do that in a year and then get on with your life. So I use commitment devices where I set up some kind of pain if I don't do the actions that are required to succeed. So for example, with my YouTube channel, in order to become a successful YouTuber, I need to take the step of putting out a YouTube video every single week. And so I have pain where if I do not put out a video, then I have to pay $100 to a charity that I really don't like. The crazy thing is that I set this up about 26 weeks ago, and ever since then, I have put out a video every single week because that commitment devices is forcing me to take those steps. And I've been able to grow more on YouTube, I've been able to get better at YouTube, and I'm doing the inputs required to succeed. You can do this by having a personal trainer, or a coach, or an accountability person. You can do this by putting out a public declaration that you're going to work out on a certain day. You can do it by joining or signing up for a half marathon. You can do it by challenging yourself on social media. There's so many ways to use commitment devices. The most important thing is to speak out what it is you want to achieve and when you want to achieve it, and then know what the consequence will be if you don't actually do that. And then have someone else who is going to dish out that consequence so that you don't shirk from it. That's really important. Number 4 is to celebrate progress. We typically celebrate successes, which is the milestones that the steps that we've taken have led to. But if we want to become a step taker, then we need to shift that to the steps themselves, because you're not going to get all the milestones all the time. You might do everything that you need to lose weight in a week and then see the scales go up. You might go to the gym consistently for a month and then have a day where you feel really, really weak. You might be training for a marathon and then go out and do a really crappy run and feel like a failure. Milestones are just latent measures of our inputs. But they're somewhat unpredictable, but that we can't control them directly, and failing on them doesn't mean that we're not actually making progress. We've got to shift to celebrating the inputs themselves. So if you go to the gym 5 times and that's your goal, celebrate that, not whether you are feeling strong on those days. If your goal is to get out and run every day, then celebrate that, not whether you can run a 5-minute mile. I don't even know how much that is, I don't know miles. If you're on a weight loss journey, then celebrate that you ate your vegetables every single day, not whether you lost 2 pounds in a week, because that will come later if you do the inputs. Celebrate becoming a step taker, not a milestone maker. That comes later. Number 5 is to start to understand that there's a gap between how you feel and what you think and the way that you can act. Because a lot of us are just acting on autopilot. When we feel sad, we act out of that. When we feel like we're hungry, we put the cookie in our mouths. When we feel like we don't want to go to the gym, then we don't go. But between how you feel about something and the response that you have, you do have a choice in there as to how to respond. You can take that from being autopilot, who you are today, and turn that into the kind of behaviors that the person that you will need to be is going to have as their default autopilot. Even if you're not the person today who can do 10 pull-ups, you can be the person today who is going to be the 10 pull-up girl who goes to the gym and works out even when they don't feel like they want to do it. Okay, so I just got home from the gym and I'm going to go and do some more work. I really don't feel like doing anything, but I think I'm just going to make a coffee and crack into it. It is like such a beautiful day, which makes me just like want to go for a skate, but gotta do some stuff. And I think this is the most exciting part about using habits and behavioral change and how they affect our identity, is that even though we don't achieve the goals quickly, especially if they're big and scary, we can still become the kind of person that feels really good about ourselves, sees the progress that we're making, and can feel the success of achieving that goal, even if it's years away, very quickly, because we start to build evidence that even though we don't see it yet, we're that kind of person. We're acting in congruency today with who we say that we want to be, and I don't think there's any better feeling than that. Like, it's truly very, very rewarding, and it's why progress can feel so addicting. There's someone I very much respect called Layla Hormozi, and she talks about business, mindset, and managing teams, and she talks about how you can have feelings and emotions and they don't have to influence your behavior, but you can still feel them and hold space for them. And she describes it as having like a handbag where if you feel sad or if you feel upset, you don't want to go work out, you feel like you're a failure, all of these things that don't actually serve you, you can put those in a little handbag and wear the handbag, put those feelings in, but still go about your day. And here's an example of that. So I just went on a trip with my husband and we have some cookies that we brought home to share with some family and friends. And I'm looking at those cookies this morning and I'm thinking, I really want to eat them. But because I'm able to do this, I can identify that as a thought process. I want to eat those cookies. I feel annoyed that I can't. Well, that I choose not to. I don't want to say no to this, but I have other goals. I can also acknowledge that I feel a little bit sorry for myself, that I'm not just like a normal person that can go and eat those cookies, or that I'm not someone who just has got like a better metabolism. I can eat whatever I want. Like I have to be very intentional about it. And I can hold space for all of those thoughts and feelings, but I can choose to act in accordance with my goals, because that's the evidence of me moving and taking steps towards who I want to be. And the same thing with grief and sadness, because I've struggled with a lot of mental health issues over the past couple of years, and a lot of that is because my husband Nick has got multiple sclerosis, which is a condition where we've seen just continuous degeneration of his symptoms and really like a lower quality of life in a lot of physical areas because of having that happen to him. As you can imagine, there's a lot of sadness, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of grief that comes associated with that. But I've been able to learn that I can feel those things. I can hold space for grief. I cannot try to get rid of it or pretend that it doesn't exist or even just like medicate it away, but to see that and feel that and know that that is not a negative thing, to feel a sense of sadness, but to still ask that question, well, who do I want to be? How do I want to act in this situation? And feel that and acknowledge it, and not try and minimize it, but also go, well, I'm going to act in the way that is accordance with my goals and who I choose to be in this world, not just how I feel right now, because that's going to come and go. And number 6 is very practical, because normally I like to hide a mindset tip amongst a whole lot of other physical things, but I'm going to do it the other way around. This is a very physical hack that you can use to make your life easier, and that is to eat a whole lot more potatoes, especially sweet potatoes. They are the most satiating food on the planet. That means that when you eat them, you feel full and satisfied. You're not going to be thinking about food as much. You're not going to want to binge as much. You can eat a lot of them and they're going to be low in calories. They're going to help you to lose weight. They're going to give you a ton of energy. They are the best pre-workout. I'll add them to all the meals that I'm making because I know it's going to help me to feel more full. I don't have to think about using willpower to stay consistent with my diet, because I just like to eat the food that I do because I enjoy it and I feel good after eating it. Because potatoes. And Japanese sweet potatoes literally taste like cake batter. They are so freaking good. I can eat them every single day. I have never gotten sick of them. I can take them on a plane. I can take them on the train. I can eat them anywhere. Sam I am. They are my green eggs and ham. So that's it from me. I hope that you found this video helpful. Please let me know in the comments which of these 6 things that you are going to start implementing and whether this has been any shifts for you. And also check out my nails. I just did them and I feel very, very proud of them. Okay, so I will see you next week for another video, and I'm going to go eat some potato. All right, one more thing. If you like understanding how behavioral change works and habits, which is the biggest thing when it comes to losing weight and changing your behavior at all, then I really dive deep in my podcast, which is the Lean of Plants podcast. And I did an episode which expands on this a whole lot more. It's 10 things that you need to know to make this easier, get onto the cheat codes, make all of this change extremely easy, or as easy as it can be. I did that in this episode here. So if you want to watch or listen, I should say listen to that, then go check it out. All right, that is truly goodbye. Bye.